Okay, welcome to RGES Algebra 1, Lesson 30A, and this is Part 2. Right now, what I want to do then is go over, review the quiz 17. And I'm going to do this very slowly for you. Neither one, you did not do as well as I'd hoped you would do on this. And so we want to go over this very carefully because we are getting ready to have a test on chapter 11. Okay, so this covers 11.1 to 11.6, and then I will also, in addition, review 11.7 through 11.10. And I do believe that that is the end of the chapter, yes. So I'll review those last couple when I'm done here. It says evaluate it if x equals 5. So what do I have to do to evaluate? I take this value of x, 5, and I have to plug it in there and there. So that becomes 5 minus 10 over 5 plus 3. I think you all did this right except for a sign problem. 5 minus 10 is negative 5 over 8. So make sure you get your signs correct. Number 2, simplify. If we divide the numerator and the denominator by 7, we're going to get 5 thirds. In my numerator, I'm going to get x to the 5th, and in my denominator, I'm going to get y to the 3rd. Or I could say 5 thirds x to the 5th and y to the negative 3. Seems to me you all did that correctly also. You don't have to convert this to a decimal. Okay, just leave it just like that is probably the better answer. Number 3, this one I was a little disappointed in, to be honest, because you forgot a very fundamental idea, and that is that we can only cancel multipliers. Now, right now, I have 2 multipliers or 2 factors in the numerator and 2 factors in the denominator. So when I look for what I could cancel, I have to have things that look the same. So that cancels and that cancels to give me this over this. Now, can I cancel here? Can I cancel my x's? Let's see. Could I cancel those? Could I cancel that into that? The answer is no. Why? Because these are not just multipliers. This is a quantity divided by a quantity. So they had to be the same in order to do any of that extra canceling. So the final answer then is not with any more canceling. The final answer is this. Now, this is one of the most fundamental ideas we've been doing in this chapter, so do not be tempted to do anything more with that problem, okay? That's a very key idea. Number 4, remember we cannot cancel until we have factors, so we have to factor the numerator with binomial factoring, and we have to factor the denominator with binomial factoring. I would always suggest when you're taking a test or a quiz that you check yourself when you're binomial factoring by foiling backwards, meaning I'm going to, let's see, my difference is going to be 2, and so I'm going to have a plus 4 and a minus 2. And FOIL it backwards, you're going to get x squared plus 4 minus 2, or plus 2x minus 8. So I did it correctly. Do the denominator. I need a sum of 5, so I'm going to get an x minus 2 and an x minus 3. Again, FOIL it backwards. X squared minus 2x minus 3x is minus 5x, and multiplying it together, you get positive 6. So always check it, because some of you in your speed are just not being quite as efficient as you need to be yet. With this binomial factoring, you're messing up your factors, and then you can't get the correct answer. So now that I have factors, right, I can't go crossing anything like this out. That would be very, very wrong. Okay, I have to convert to things that are being multiplied together. So now that I have factors, I'm going to cancel that and cancel that. And what did I say? Could I cancel any more? No. So the final answer is x plus 4 over x minus 3. So 2 ways to go wrong. Factoring parts that are being added or subtracted, you cannot factor any portions of these. And when you're foiling, when you're binomial factoring, you're not doing it correctly. Okay, number 5. It says find x if I'm giving you this. Well, how do I find x? Well, I'm going to solve for the numerator by multiplying both sides by the denominator, right? So I'm going to say x plus 7 equals 2 times x minus 5. Do you remember that? Just like if I said x over 3 equals 2, I would multiply the other side by 3. So instead of 3, I've got this, but I'm going to do the same idea. I'm going to multiply it to the right side. So now I'll distribute. Now I'll take my x's to the left and my number to the right. And now I'll multiply by negative 1 to get x rather than negative x. And there's your answer. Okay. Number 6. These are all multipliers. What does that mean? If they're factors or multipliers, I can cancel. So let me go ahead and change colors here. I'm going to go 8 into 16 goes 2 times. The x's cancel out. 2 goes into, 2 and 3 is 6. 6 goes into 12 2 times, and the y's cancel out. So altogether, I just have an answer of 2. Seven, to divide, this is going to be a 2-part problem. The first thing I'm going to do is convert this division to a multiply by the reciprocal. So it's the second one that needs the reciprocal. Next thing I'm going to do is notice that with this plus, I cannot start just canceling parts, but I can take out a monomial factor. Okay, so that's what I have to do. I can't just start canceling things because I have a plus side. I only can cancel factors. So let's make anything we can factor. We can convert this to a factor and this to a factor with taking out a monomial term. Now I have some factors. Okay, and so now I can start canceling. Okay, notice that this would be viewed as a pair or as a grouping because of this, right? But a plus 4b can cancel with a plus 4b. 4 goes into 24 6 times. And so I'll now multiply. My numerator will be 12, and my denominator will be 2a plus 3b. Going to the next page. The first thing you always want to do when you're finding the least common multiple is factor each term. Okay, so to find the least common multiple between the left term and the right term, I'm going to factor this. This is a binomial squared, 2a plus 3 times 2a minus 3. And this one, I'll divide out a 3a, and I'll get 2a minus 3. And now I'll take, for my least common multiple, I'll take everything from the left one, and anything I don't already have from the right one. I already have this, so I don't need to repeat it, but I still need this. And this is my least common multiple, right like that. So review that idea, go to the appropriate section if you need more practice there. And finally, or not finally, next one, 9, it says add. What do you need to be able to add fractions? You need a least common multiple, or the least common denominator. What is the least common denominator? Between 6 and 8, this is 2 times 3, this is 2 times 4. So I would take everything from here, and anything that I still need. I've already got that, so I still need this. That equals 24. So now converting my fractions. I've already got the 2 times 3, so I need times 4. Distributing, I'll get 4p plus 8 plus, on the right side fraction, I've already got the 2 times 4, so I need a 3 as a multiplier, and distributing, I'll get 3p minus 9. Gathering like terms, I'll get 7p minus 1 all over my least common denominator. Now, if you do not choose to work with the least common denominator, okay, and one of you forgot to do that, you went ahead and said, my multiplier here, let's go back here for a minute, and you said that your multiplier here was going to be, rather than 4, it was going to be 8, and it was going to be 6 here, and that's fine. You'll get 8 times 6 is 48 in the denominator, but the problem is, when you figure it out, if it can reduce, you must reduce it. Okay, so you get points off in whatever it would have been, 14p minus 2, and you have to notice then, if you're not choosing to find your least common denominator at the beginning, you finding any common denominator, you must be able to convert that to the simplest terms. So in this case, I would divide both the top and the bottom by 2. So that's a warning if you don't choose it to do that way. Now let's go on to number 10. My least common denominator will be x plus 3 times x minus 3. My multiplier for the left-hand fraction will be this. And so if you distribute, you're going to get 2x minus 6. For the right-hand fraction, it will be this. And distributing, I'm going to get plus 2x plus 6. These two will cancel out, and you will get 4x over the least common denominator. I could distribute this out. It doesn't matter. There's nothing I can cancel, because recall, you're not going to be able to cancel things that are added or subtracted, right? So this is your answer. Number 11. Now my least common denominator here will be x minus 2 times x plus 1. I'll tell you right now where the danger point is. The danger point is having a minus sign before that. So go ahead and write out my partials before I FOIL, okay? So this will be the multiplier on the left-hand side. So it'd be x minus 4 times x plus 1. And the reason I'm telling you to write it out that way first is so I don't forget to distribute the negative sign. On the right-hand side, this will be my multiplier. So you'll get x minus 7 times x minus 2. Now when I FOIL it, I'm going to get x squared plus 1x minus 4x is minus 3x minus 4. On my right side, I'm going to get x squared, but now I'm going to pay attention to this, minus x squared. Okay. I'm going to get negative 2 minus negative 2x minus minus 7x is going to be negative 9x, but then I'm going to pay attention to this, so I'm going to get plus 9x. And then it's going to be positive 14, but paying attention to this again, minus 14. So that's where you're going to go wrong here. Now going ahead and gathering my like terms, these will cancel out. You're going to get 6x minus 18. I notice I could factor this numerator, taking a 6 out and getting x minus 3, but that's not going to help me any because that doesn't cancel down below. And of course we know we cannot start canceling parts of things. We can only view these things as factors that can cancel. So that's just a perfectly good answer right there. Okay, got a couple more. Okay, I want to change this by doing the reciprocal here. I think you find this a little bit easier, the division and the multiplication, even when I have more than one step here. And so we're just going to cancel. And we're going to go that into that. And so in my numerator, I get 4. And in my denominator, I'm adding up my x's. X to the 5th is 5x's times 4x's times 2x's. That would be 11x's gathered together. Now number 13, our last one. It says 10 over x minus 4 plus 6 over 4 minus x. Now the trick to this problem is to recognize this one of these special cases. This can become x minus 4 if I put a minus there instead, right? Because that, if I distributed that minus sign, I'd get negative x, which is what I had here, plus 4, which is what I have here. So now, what do I have? If I notice that, all I have is the common denominator already. Now, there's nothing much to do. 10 minus 6 is 4 over the common denominator. Could I cancel these? No. Why not? Because I have a plus or a minus sign, so you cannot do that. Go back. This is your answer. Okay, now, I'm going to review. That was through 11.6. I'm going to review what else you need to know, and consider this the whole review for your Chapter 11 test. 11.7 is that long division. And I'm not going to do anything tricky. Okay, remember you have to set it in order, and if you're missing any terms, you have to write them in, but I won't do anything that's missing any terms. So let me just review it one time with you. You would go set it up as a long division problem. I'm looking at this, and I'm saying, how many times do I have to multiply this by to get by x to get it? What do I have to multiply by x to get that? And I would have to multiply it by 5x squared. So then I multiply it back to the first term, and I multiply it back to the second term. And I subtract. So these two will drop out, and you're saying 7 minus 20 minus 13 x squared, and then you bring down. Now the trick is the signs, okay? Other than that, this is very straightforward because it's just like division. Now x times what is going to be negative 13x squared, and so it's going to be negative 13x. Again, I multiply back. I'm going to get negative 13x squared. I multiply the second term, minus 52x. I subtract, and so that becomes negative 13 plus 13, negative 3 plus 52. Running out of room here, but that'll be 49x. Bring down the plus 8. Do it one more time. X times what equals 49x, so that'd be plus 49. And multiplying back. Subtracting, and you're going to get negative 188 as your remainder. So the final answer becomes 5x squared minus 13x. Let me get you another color so you make sure you're seeing my answer. 5x squared minus 13x plus 49 minus 188 over the divisor, over x plus 4. Now that is 11.7. If you need to go back and review that again, go, by all means do. Let me go to 11.8. Now for 11.8, when we have equal signs here, okay, you want to get rid of your denominators, okay, by multiplying by the common denominator. And you want to be careful to throw away extraneous solutions. So there's two parts to this problem. The common denominator is x. Multiply both sides, so it'll cancel here, and I'll get 4x minus 3. It'll cancel here, equals 17, and then that becomes a very simple problem, right? 4x equals 20 or x equals 5, provided, but you also have to pay attention to x cannot equal 0. Why not? Because you cannot divide by 0. So when I solve this, I got x equals 0, I would say there's no solution. Otherwise, I would just solve it for x, add the 3 to the other side, divide by 4, and that's my answer. Let me give you one other example here, and let's pick something where we've got a couple of different denominators to use. Here, my common denominator will be 35x. So I'll multiply it by that, and by the third term. 7 goes into 35, 5x. 5x times 1 is 5x. Notice how when I do this, I lose the denominator, right? 35 times 1 is 35. And 5 goes into 35, 7, and so 7x times 1 is 7x. Going ahead and solving, we're going to get negative, well, I could go to either side, but I typically do that. Negative 2x equals negative 35, and divide by 2. Divide by negative 2, and you'll get 35 halves. Or what is that, 17.5. Now, I have to decide what x cannot equal. Remember, to figure out what's quote-unquote an extraneous root, that means we cannot, it makes no sense. The only thing you're looking for is when the variable's in the denominator. This is the only one where the variable's in the denominator, so x cannot equal 0. But it doesn't, so this is a good solution. Now let me just show you one time if the last idea, we've just had x's in the denominator, but if I had x over x minus 4 in the denominator, x could not equal what? It could equal 0, because then it would be a negative 4 in the denominator, and that's fine. What I want to figure out is what it's when the whole denominator's 0. So if x were 4, then 4 minus 4, then I'm dividing by 0. Do you see how that works? So you're thinking, what would make this whole thing equal to 0? And that's what you cannot have. Okay, but rather than saying equal, if it's equal to 0, we're not allowed that solution. Okay, so go back and review 11.8. If you have any more questions on that, go back to that section. Finally, for 11.9, those word problems we started the day with, I am only going to ask you to, for numbers 1 through 5 only, and 11.10, 1 through 3 only. So if you can do, again, I'll change the numbers, but if you understand those concepts and how to set up the problems and solve those, that's all I care about. Okay, so what's going to be your homework? I think because I'm very concerned about that quiz, you can go off and print it again. You already have it sent to your email, so print the quiz and retake it, and you've got all the answers now. And then we're going to review Chapter 11. Okay, and there will be a test on Chapter 11. So rather than going on to something new, this is what I want you to do. You're going to take that test this week and get it in the mail to us. I will send out that test today, so if you happen to get it in the mail before the day we collect papers, if you happen to have finished it before the day we collect papers, so it's due the end of the week. I would prefer it if you could just bring it on Thursday. I think we've changed it to Thursday because we're sitting here with about 8+ inches of snow outside, and no sense or no sign of stopping. It's supposed to snow all the way through tonight. So we will not be able to get out of the house tomorrow for our first planned on date to collect papers. So that will be on Thursday instead. Okay, no new work, no new homework, except to retake the quiz, review the chapter, and take your test, which I will attach today or tomorrow.